Wouldn't it be nice to have several thought leaders in your industry know and love your brand? Start a podcast. Invite your industry's thought leaders to be guests on your show, and start reaping the benefits of having a network full of industry influencers. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome back to B2B Growth. I'm Logan Lyles with Sweetfish Media. Today, I'm joined by two special guests. I've got with me, guys, Sharon Thompson. She's the VP of Marketing over at Signal Sciences. And we've also got Brendon Macaraeg, Senior Director of Product Marketing over at Signal Sciences as well. How's it going today, guys?
Great. Hey,
really
Logan.
good. Thank you for having us.
Well, we are going to be talking about developing an effective go-to-market strategy, including a number of things, targeting, validation of your target persona. But before we really get into all of that you guys are going to share today, Sharon and Brendon, I would love for you guys to give us a little bit of background and a little bit on what your team's been up to these days. Sharon, let's kick it off with you.
Yeah, you bet. So Sharon Thompson here. I have over 35 years of marketing experience. I've worked at brands like Informix Software as the Chief Marketing Officer, IBM in the data management and information software area as a senior executive there, also reporting into Sam Palmisano doing special projects. And I was also early on in my career the communications czar to Misters Andy Grove and Craig Barrett at Intel, who are the founders. And it's just been a pleasure to be here at Signal Sciences for 1 year today, actually.
Awesome. Well, Sharon, I love hearing a little bit about your background. Brendon, why don't you take it away? Give us a little bit of an intro on yourself and what you and the team have been up to over there.
Sure. Brendon Macaraeg here. Thanks again, Logan, for having us. So I've been in marketing for, over 22 years. And most of it's been product marketing. And really what that's about is translating customer needs and into solutions, and then making sure that information's in through all the customer touch points, obviously, so they understand the product and how it solves their problems. But as far as my personal background, I've been in security for about 8 years. That's CrowdStrike prior to this, for about 2.5 years, supporting the professional services team there. Prior to CrowdStrike, I was at Symantec for about almost 4 years, where I launched both consumer and enterprise products in security. And then before Symantec, I was at a variety of different verticals, from ticketing at Live Nation to travel at Viking River Cruises, where basically I oversaw e-commerce products and programs management.
Gotcha. Well, we're going to have to swing back to specifically your experience in marketing to security professionals in that sector, and some lessons learned for other folks that are also in that sector, and lessons learned that, can really be applied no matter what persona you're going after there, Brendon. Sharon, I'd like to kick it back to you. Your background, for anybody listening to this, they can tell, you've got a good bit of marketing chops and experience in a number of different roles and different size organizations. Curious what some of the lessons learned for you have been in really organizing your team to support your go-to-market strategy as you start building it out.
Sure. Yeah. Love answering this question. Before I talk about how I've organized teams, I'd like to talk about how we create our go-to-market strategy, and then how the team then affects the execution and success of that. So I like to take a three-pronged approach, particularly with high-growth companies: thought leadership, brand awareness, customer acquisition, and of course, customer advocacy. And with these three approaches, what's most successful in execution is really the ruthless focus on executing. So we have to take a look at execution efficiency, make sure that we're going from A to B to C to D in a very straight line, and that we don't get disrupted and we don't get off path, because in high growth companies, there always are things that are going to pull your attention away from the end result. Of course, the integrated approach, what I'll get into a bit later. And then one of the most important things where I've learned over the years is the lead to sales funnel alignment with our MQLs, our QSLs, and of course, ensuring that those QSLs close for business, end-to-end campaign reporting, and ensuring that the team really understands what their MBOs and the solid corporate KPIs are, so we can all march to that success. And then really creating a larger than life image, ensuring that Signal Science is everywhere, and that's using a whole host of different go-to-market channels, and that our presence is known and that it's heard, and that we've got a consistent voice in the market that we're at.
I love what you're saying there, Sharon. And one of the things that you mentioned that's core to your three-pronged approach is brand awareness and thought leadership. It seems like on this show and offline, as I'm talking to marketing leaders day in and day out, thought leadership is front of mind for so many. So I would love to kind of camp out on that for just a second. If you could maybe speak to the changing role of brand awareness and thought leadership that have been effective for you guys specifically in that area, or what other marketing teams should maybe be thinking about on that one point of the three prongs you mentioned.
Sure. So, particularly around thought leadership and awareness and building that brand, we have our traditional activities, press relations and analyst relations and events. I think over the last 5 or 6 years, we're really starting to see a lot more around content syndication programs, speaker programs, and one of the most important is really social engagement. Here at Signal Sciences, we've got a wonderful social program in place. So not only are we using Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., but we're also incorporating and will be executing customer advocacy platforms. So what does that mean? So this is something new over, again, the last 3 or 4 years. Social, our customer advocacy programs. Engage our customers, make them raving fans, create a platform that's gamification to get them interested, to keep them coming back, reward them with a whole host of different things. Gift cards, you could build your points, use them for, whatever it is that you want to. Dinner with the C-levels here at Signal Sciences. So I think using PR and AR, content syndication programs, and really bolstering your social programs is most important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are core areas you've got to be thinking about in that awareness and thought leadership point as you approach that three-pronged approach that you mentioned, Sharon. As we talk about, the integrated marketing approach that you guys take, Sharon, can you speak to, really the structure of your team to be able to support that? I think, so many marketing leaders I talk to, especially that content syndication you mentioned, they're trying to do more, oftentimes with less. Whether they're a marketing team of 5 or 50, it seems like they're trying to get more without doing, getting twice the results without twice the input. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on, organizing the team efficiently to be able to get more in all of those efforts as you're trying to create all these multiple touch points and really an integrated marketing go-to-market approach.
Certainly, you bet. Well, our marketing executive team is extremely experienced. We have, collectively hundreds of years under our belt, as you heard from myself and also Brendon. So we've learned, lessons along the way. But how I've organized the team, first and foremost, content. That's so important. And also messaging and positioning and ensuring that we're talking to our customers in the vein that they understand, that we're addressing their issues. So product marketing. So what we've done with product marketing, Brendon's team is responsible for content, training, external as well as internal, all of our case studies, etc. Also working with our digital team and our demand generation team that is responsible for all things digital. That's Google AdWords, SEO, SEM, banners, also the content syndication execution. So product marketing, again, works extremely closely with our demand gen team to ensure that the content is there. We also have events team that's under demand generation. So we've got a very robust events calendar. So again, creating that larger than life image, we're everywhere. And then we have ARPR team along with a world-class PR agency. And then we've got our website. So, all of our activities, no matter what the channel is, whether it's digital, PR, AR, content syndication, placed content, we're driving all traffic back to our website. So we also have a very senior director of web.
Imagine it, a spreadsheet filled with rows and rows of your sales enablement assets. You've devoted 2 years to organizing this masterpiece, only for it to stop making sense. This was Chad Trabuco's reality. As the head of sales enablement at Glint, a LinkedIn company, he's responsible for instilling confidence in his sales reps and arming them with the information they need to do their jobs. However, when his glorious spreadsheet became too complex, he realized he needed a new system. That's when Chad turned to Guru. With Guru, the knowledge you need to do your job finds you. Between Guru's web interface, Slack integration, mobile app, and browser extension, teams can easily search for verified knowledge without leaving their workflow. No more siloed or staled information. Guru acts as your single source of truth. For Chad, this meant Glint sales reps were left feeling more confident doing their jobs. See why leading companies like Glint, Shopify, Spotify, Slack, and more are using Guru for their knowledge management needs. Visit b2bgrowth.getguru.com to start your 30-day free trial and discover how knowledge management can empower your revenue teams. I love it. Sharon, thank you so much for that breakdown, especially for early stage teams that are thinking, okay, what all pieces to the puzzle do I need to start thinking about as we develop a go-to-market strategy and a team that will be able to execute that? Because I love what you're saying. We've talked about that a good bit on the show here, that really strategy is nothing without execution. I love the way you put it, ruthless commitment to execution. I'm paraphrasing a bit there. But Brendon, let's kick it over to you as we've started to talk about product marketing rolling up into the rest of the team, working concurrently with demand gen and the other functional roles within marketing. I would love to hear a little bit about what you guys have been working on from a targeting and validation of your persona perspective, and how maybe that's differed from previous roles or some of the lessons you've been learning in several roles now in the security space.
Sure. So here at Signal Sciences, obviously product marketing is concerned with, we want, the way I look at it is every time you produce a piece of content, you want something that opens up a sales conversation or helps the sales team pursue existing sales conversations with prospects. So having said that, so we're in an interesting spot here at Signal Sciences because our three founders, Nick, Andrew, and Zane, they were the target customers because they headed up the security program at Etsy, which is one of the largest e-commerce sites on the web. And they saw a need for web application security that would actually work in production and not be a black box so that customers would understand this is why we block the bad web requests and this is why we let these other ones through. So they saw a real need and they were the target audience. So basically we target developers, operations staff, and security staff. Developers are the ones designing the code and building the code. Operations staffs are the ones that are responsible with the SLA and the rolling out of the code into production. And security staff obviously have the responsibility of securing an organization's digital assets. So having said that, on an ongoing basis, what we've been doing is, we work closely with our sales team. They're in the trenches and they're talking to prospects and our current customers about what their use cases are and what the pain points that they're having with their application security. So we can know what are the real problems in the trenches, and then we can basically help define content that will address those needs, and then distribute that messaging throughout our website, in our case studies, and other places that it's relevant. So again, from my point of view as a product marketer, if I want to be effective, I really have to not just make content in volume, but make content that's going to create value. So that's really how I look at what we're doing here on an ongoing basis with our personas and how we target the people out there in the trenches. As far as like real world strategies that your listeners can use to target the right people, for their services and products. I mean, there's obviously LinkedIn is a great way to see what people work on in terms of their job titles, what their responsibilities are, and then try to map your service to those responsibilities. There are other prospecting tools online that are available to folks that they can use to unearth prospective customers that they can test messaging. So those are some of the things that I look at. There's obviously new technologies that you can use to see what visitors are doing on your website to make sure you're serving up the right content as well. So we're looking at those things here at Signal Sciences as well.
Yeah. What are some of the unique challenges for you guys in the security space? You mentioned having, a number of stops now in the security space in a product marketing role, Brendon.
Yeah, I think with this audience in particular, security folks, whether it's security, development, or operations, these are very smart people you're dealing with. You cannot try to fly something under the radar that's not something that they can believe in. They will smell out anything that is hype very quickly. Mm-hmm. So from my point of view is you want to have a marketing message that can be buffered by validation from third parties. And so Signal Sciences has been in the great position that we were just named a visionary by Gartner in the Magic Quadrant for WAF, which is the category of security we're in. You also have other third-party studies from 451 Research. We also have articles that are written about our technology that validates our approach to the problems that we're solving for our customers. So I think it's important for a marketer when you can get that third-party validation to validate your messaging. When you can't, then you can look at your own data that your own product or service will generate for you. So, for example, we put out a indicators of web attacks white paper. We surface telemetry from our own customer data to show people these are the 5 most prevalent attacks that are happening against people's. So yeah, leverage your own data when you can. If you can't get that third-party validation, those would be like my 2 major recommendations to your audience.
Yeah, those are really great recommendations, Brendon, that folks, whether they're serving security professionals, IT professionals, or a completely different functional area, I think that's still good advice. Another question I had for you that maybe for other folks serving a similar persona, or where they could take this and apply it to the persona that they're trying to reach. From what I see, having sold to IT professionals for about 10 years, very different than what you guys are doing. I definitely recognize what you guys are talking about in them just looking right past the hype and being very turned off by it. So I can relate to that. The other thing I've been seeing is that the role of security within IT as a whole is somewhat changing. So I imagine that as the dynamics within the technical departments are changing, you've got to validate those personas. You got to validate what are the dynamics that are happening within the organizations that we sell into in the functional role. What have been some of the things that you guys have done to kind of keep your finger on that pulse and not just, okay, this is what this persona thought 4 years ago, and this is how we message to them today, and not letting that get stale,
Yeah, so I think being a successful product marketer means you collaborate and you partner with your product management team because they're also talking to customers and they're working with sales as well to hear what the customers have to say. So one thing that I do is I collaborate closely with product management. In fact, we're embarking on our new product offering now, and I'm collaborating with them to validate what the customers are telling them in terms of the problems in this specific area. And also we have a customer advisory board that we leverage to get feedback from customers. If you don't have that kind of organization, then what you can do is obviously online surveys. You can reach out to your customers digitally. We can do that here as well. But I think what we try to do is leverage the people that are having access to our customers in the front line and get the feedback from them as well.
Yeah, I also want to echo the cross-team, cross-department collaboration. I think over the years, that's something that I've learned, that you just can't work in a silo of just marketing or just on your own team within marketing. That if you are not in lockstep with your own team and cross-team, as well as the other departments, you will fail. And failure is not an option. And then customer advocacy, that's where you're going to get a lot of the feedback from, right? We're seeing that security used to be just an issue for security professionals, but now it's across the organization. Mm-hmm. It's everyone's responsibility for sure.
Yeah. I wanted to follow up on that point. Early in my career as a marketer, you always fall in love. Oh, look at this beautiful piece of collateral I just made. Isn't this awesome?
Right.
You have to realize what I've realized 20 years later in my career is the salespeople have to go and make that stand up and walk and talk effectively. Mm-hmm. So if your sales team's not bought into what you're putting out in terms of content or talking points or other public-facing material, you're not really doing your job very well.
Yeah.
So you really do have to collaborate with folks, get your stakeholder input and validation before you put something out to market.
I always tell the team, we need to think out of the box. Instead of going down the freeway on four wheels, let's turn the bus on its side because it's so loud out there. 1, 2, we will break glass. We've got to try things. This way we will know what works. Let's do more of that. We'll also learn very quickly what does not work. So again, being ruthlessly focused on execution is key. And then also setting and continually looking at the success metrics, right? The MBOs and the KPIs that are in place. I track between 85 and 100 KPIs. And the team reports each week on those. And this is only going to help us increase our success and be a better team player across the entire organization because we're looking at the metrics, what's working, what's not. Let's don't do anything that's not working anymore. And also it makes us question our execution and the efficiency and effectiveness of it. Like for instance, just last week, we saw a little bit of dip in our web traffic. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why? Well, then we had to unpeel that one and we learned a couple of things from that. So we're always improving.
Yeah. I have a follow-up point on that as well, Logan. And that is, especially now with all the SaaS tools that companies use to drive their marketing programs and their online, data-driven decisions. If you don't have a KPI dashboard that shows you the health of your business and how different pieces of the pie are fitting together to drive, you really need to get that in place. And there's obviously different sources out there to develop KPIs. And your listeners know their business very well, but that'd be one of my major recommendations. If you don't have a KPI dashboard to measure your business's health, get that in place. And then once you do have it in place, as Sharon said, you need to look into why are certain things going up and down so that you can understand the cycles of your business, really better visibility on how your business is running.
I love that, all of this, guys. Sharon, I love your analogy of turning the bus on its side and going down the highway. That's just fantastic. And what you guys are echoing there about not only measuring those KPIs, but regularly reviewing them and having them easily visible is something I think we just can't say enough. Our team went through a book club several months back of the 4 disciplines of execution. And one of the things I've steadily took from that book is you have to have a cadence of accountability. Otherwise, those measurements really don't mean anything. So always good reminders there. Sharon, Brendon, I know that fellow B2B marketers are going to want to connect with you guys after hearing this and maybe reach out, ask some follow-up questions. What's the best way for them to reach out or stay connected with each of you? Sharon, I'll kick it to you as we wrap up first.
Sure. They can connect with me in 2 different ways. One on LinkedIn, Sharon Thompson, Signal Sciences, or here at Signal Sciences at Sharon@signalsciences.com.
Easy enough. Brendon, how about you, man?
Sure. It's Brendon, Brendon @signalsciences.com. And then I'm on Twitter as well at BrendonMLA. And also you can look me up on LinkedIn, Brendon Macaraeg, Macaraeg at Signal Sciences.
All right. Thank you guys so much for a great conversation. Really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks very much, Logan.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big 3, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.